You see, the real you is not who you think. This self, the one you cling to, the one you define, is nothing more than a passing cloud. It's a fleeting thought, a transient form of energy caught up in the mind's illusions. Now, who is this you? When you think about it, this you is not some fixed, permanent entity. No, it is something that is constantly changing, shifting, and evolving in every moment. What you call yourself is nothing more than a collection of thoughts, beliefs, and patterns that appear to form a cohesive image of you. But this image is not the real you. It's an illusion, a reflection in the mirror that constantly distorts with every glance. The real you cannot be captured by words, nor can it be pinned down by any labels. You are not your profession, your social status, or even your name. These are merely roles you play in the great drama of life, but they are not who you truly are. Look deeper, and you will find that you are not separate from the world around you. There is no you isolated from the universe. Just as waves are not separate from the ocean, you are not separate from the vast, interconnected web of life. We are all expressions of the same energy, flowing in and out of existence. We often spend our lives searching for this real self, but we miss the point. It's not something that can be found in the past or projected into the future. The real you is found only in the present moment, in the space between thoughts, in the silence that underlies everything. The paradox is that the more we try to define ourselves, the further we get from who we really are. When we let go of the ego, the need to control or define, we begin to experience life as it truly is, an unfolding mystery. So, the real you is not a fixed identity, not a set of characteristics that can be pinned to a board. It is the vast, ever-changing flow of life itself. When you stop clinging to the image you think you are, you will begin to see yourself in everything, every leaf, every stone, every breath. You are not separate. You are the flow of the river, the pulse of the universe. In the end, the real you is a mystery. It's not something you can grasp with the mind, but something you can only experience when you let go of the need to hold on. The real you is already here, right in front of you. You are already one with everything. You've just forgotten. The illusion of self-identity is one of the most fascinating and perplexing aspects of human existence. We are not the image we hold in our minds. That image is but a temporary construct, a fleeting shadow that we mistakenly believe to be the essence of who we are. We spend so much of our lives, perhaps unknowingly, clinging to this image, this mental picture of ourselves, thinking it defines us. Yet, this self-image is no more real than a reflection in a mirror, something that is there only as long as we look at it, and disappears the moment we turn away. When we look into the mirror, we see a face, perhaps with a certain expression, a certain posture, and in that moment we think we know who we are. We base so much of our identity on the reflection that stares back at us. This reflection, however, is only a fraction of the whole picture. It is an image that has been shaped over time by experiences, by perceptions, by judgments, and by societal conditioning. Yet despite all of this, it is just a momentary impression, a fleeting snapshot that does not capture the essence of our being. At its core, the self-image is a creation of the mind. We define ourselves by what we have done, what we have achieved, and most often by what we think others think of us. We identify with our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, and because of this, we form an idea of who we are. But here's the paradox. This idea, this image, is not the real you. It is an illusion, a construct of the mind that has no permanence, no true essence. It is constantly shifting, constantly changing, just like the clouds in the sky that come and go. The person you think you are today is not the same person you were yesterday, and will not be the same person tomorrow. The image we have of ourselves is not an accurate representation of our true nature. It is, in many ways, a defense mechanism, a way for the mind to make sense of the chaos of existence. We create an identity because it feels safe. It feels secure to have a defined self, something to hold on to amidst the vast, infinite uncertainty of life. But what if this very self-image is the thing that keeps us from experiencing the freedom and the fullness of life? In truth, our identity is fluid, not fixed. It cannot be boxed into any single definition, because it is not a static entity. It is a living, breathing, evolving process. We are not the person we were yesterday, and we are not the person we will be tomorrow. This moment, this very breath, is the only reality we can truly claim. And in this moment there is no fixed you, and no unchanging identity. The self is a process, an ongoing movement, not a thing that can be grasped and held onto. But let's step back for a moment. If we are not the image we hold in our minds, then what are we? Who are we really? This is where the mystery lies. The truth is, we do not know. We are not our thoughts, our feelings, or our actions. We are not the roles we play, the stories we tell ourselves, or the expectations others place upon us. These are all just temporary states, like waves on the surface of the ocean. They rise, they fall, they come and go. But beneath the surface, the ocean remains unchanged, still and vast. To begin to see beyond this illusion of self-identity, we must step out of the mind and into the present moment. We must become aware of the ever-changing nature of our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, without identifying with them. We must understand that the self we think we are is not something we can hold on to, because it is always in flux, always in motion. When we let go of the image of who we think we are, something profound happens. We begin to experience life as it truly is, not as we think it should be. We begin to experience the world without the filter of self-identity, without the constant need to define and categorize everything. We see people not as reflections of ourselves, but as beings in their own right, with their own stories, their own experiences. We see the world not as a place for us to impose our ideas onto, but as a vast interconnected web of existence in which we are simply one thread, flowing with the rest. In letting go of the illusion of self-identity, we free ourselves from the limitations of the mind. We free ourselves from the constant struggle to be something we are not. We are no longer bound by the images we have created of ourselves, and in that freedom we find peace, we find joy, and we find the truth of our being. The real you is not the person you think you are. It is the space in which everything exists, the stillness behind the noise, the eternal presence that is always here, always now. It is beyond the mind, beyond the image, beyond the illusion. It is what remains when everything else falls away. The self, as we commonly understand it, is a concept that slips through our fingers the moment we try to grasp it. It is a fleeting expression, ever-changing, and ultimately unknowable. This is a truth that runs contrary to what most of us have been taught to believe, for we are conditioned to think of ourselves as fixed entities, stable, permanent, and easily identifiable. Yet if we step back and take a deeper look, we begin to realize that the self is far from any fixed notion we have of it. It is in constant flux, a river that cannot be stepped into twice, always shifting and flowing. The problem, however, lies in our attachment to this idea of a stable, knowable self. From an early age, we are taught to create an identity, to build a sense of who we are. We identify with our name, our achievements, our social roles, and our thoughts. We gather these bits of information and assemble them into a coherent story, a narrative that we believe is us. But this story, this narrative, is not the self. It is simply a construction of the mind, a temporary arrangement of thoughts and experiences. And like all stories, it changes over time. The you were yesterday is not the you of today, and the you of today will not be the same tomorrow. In fact, the you think you are is already slipping away even as you try to define it. The self we think we know is not a fixed point, not a concrete structure. It is an ongoing process, a dynamic interplay of thoughts, emotions, memories, and perceptions that come and go. It's as though we are living in a story that constantly rewrites itself, with no definitive end. Even our most cherished memories, the ones we cling to, are not fixed, but are subject to the distortions of time and perspective. The more we try to hold on to them, the more they slip away, becoming just fragments of something once whole. So where does that leave us? If the self is a fleeting expression, ever-changing and unknowable, does that mean we are left without any sense of who we are? Not at all. In fact, it means we are far more than we could ever imagine. The unknowable nature of the self invites us into a deeper, more profound experience of being, one that goes beyond the confines of the mind's definitions. You see, the more we try to know ourselves in the conventional sense, the further we get from the truth. We approach the self as though it is something that can be nailed down, something that can be figured out and understood. We want to know who we are, but the real question is, can we ever truly know ourselves in the way we think we should? The self, in its truest form, is not something that can be known by the mind, because the mind is limited to concepts, to words, to images, and the self is none of those things. It is beyond the grasp of language, beyond the structure of thought. It is the vast, unnameable space in which all things arise and fall. When we stop trying to know the self in the conventional sense, something remarkable happens. We begin to experience it. We begin to feel the ever-changing flow of life that courses through us, without the need to label it or define it. We stop identifying with the fleeting emotions, the passing thoughts, and the roles we play in the world, and instead we allow ourselves to simply be. In this beingness we touch something deeper, something that is not bound by time or space, something that is not defined by the labels we so desperately attach to ourselves. But this experience cannot be captured or pinned down. It is the paradox of the self. The more we try to hold on to it, the more it slips away. The more we try to control it, the more it resists. It is unknowable precisely because it is the essence of life itself, constantly changing, constantly moving, constantly unfolding. The self is not an object, a thing to be studied, but an ongoing experience, a process of becoming that is never finished, never complete. In this light, the unknowable nature of the self becomes something liberating. It frees us from the shackles of definition, of the need to be someone, in a world that demands certainty. It opens us to the vastness of existence, where we no longer need to cling to a fixed identity, where we can simply exist as part of the flow, as part of the mystery. The self is not something that can be known by the intellect, but something that can only be experienced in the quiet space between thoughts, in the stillness behind the noise. It is not something to be understood, but something to be lived. So, the real question is not who am I, but rather can I allow myself to experience the mystery of who I am, because in that space, in that acceptance of the unknowable, we encounter the most profound truth. We are not separate from life. We are not the sum of our thoughts and stories. We are life itself, ever changing, ever becoming and forever unknowable. To truly discover the real you, you must come to terms with the fact that the ego is not who you are. In fact, the ego is perhaps the greatest illusion we ever create for ourselves. It is a construct of the mind, built piece by piece over time, constantly seeking validation, recognition, and security. But here's the paradox. the more we cling to the ego, the more distant we become from the truth of our being. The ego is like a mask we wear, hiding our true nature behind a veil of desires, judgments, and self-importance. We are taught from a young age to identify with the ego, to think of ourselves in terms of roles and accomplishments. I am this person. We say, I am a student, a worker, a parent, a success, a failure, and so we attach our sense of self, worth to these labels. But if we take a step back, we begin to see that these labels are not who we are. They are merely roles we play in the world, temporary and ever-changing. The ego is built on these fleeting roles, and it constantly seeks to protect itself, to fortify itself against any threat to its existence. It craves approval from others, validation from the outside world, and reassurance that it is real, that it matters. Yet, no matter how much validation we receive, the ego remains hungry, always wanting more. It is never satisfied, always seeking more recognition, more success, more possessions, more affection. It creates a never-ending cycle of desire, one that keeps us trapped in the illusion that our worth is something external, something dependent on the approval of others. And so, we continue to chase after these external validations, believing they will bring us fulfillment, but they never do. The ego is a bottomless pit, and the more we feed it, the more it demands. But this pursuit of validation is not just exhausting, it is also deeply limiting. Because as long as we are attached to the ego, we are trapped in a false sense of self, disconnected from the deeper truth of who we really are. The real you cannot be found in the mind's constant chatter, in the endless cycle of comparisons and judgments. The real you is not bound by the roles you play or the achievements you accumulate. The real you is something far more expansive, far more profound than the narrow, fragmented sense of self that the ego creates. So, what happens when we begin to let go of the ego? The first thing we notice is that the need for validation begins to dissipate. We stop seeking approval from others, and instead we find a deeper sense of peace within ourselves. This peace arises not from external circumstances, but from the realization that we do not need to be validated by the world in order to be whole. We begin to see that we are enough, just as we are, without needing to prove anything to anyone. This is not a passive acceptance, but an active release, a letting go of the need to be anything other than what we are in this very moment. When we let go of the ego, we also begin to dissolve the barriers that separate us from others. The ego creates a sense of I and you, of separation and distinction. It tells us that we are separate from the world, separate from the people around us. But when the ego falls away, we begin to realize that we are not separate at all. We are all part of the same vast, interconnected web of life. The boundaries we once saw as solid and impermeable begin to soften, and we feel the unity that underlies all existence. We are not just individuals isolated in our own little world. We are expressions of the same life force that flows through everything. Letting go of the ego also means stepping out of the constant judgment of ourselves and others. The ego is a judgmental entity, always comparing, always categorizing, always dividing the world into good and bad, right and wrong. But when we dissolve the ego, we begin to see the world through a lens of compassion and acceptance. We no longer feel the need to criticize or control, because we understand that everything, including ourselves, is part of the unfolding flow of life. There is no longer a need to prove ourselves, to be better than anyone else, or to fit into any preconceived mold. To let go of the ego is to return to the present moment, to stop living in the past or future and simply be here now. The ego keeps us trapped in stories, in memories of who we were or fantasies of who we want to be. But the real you, the true self, can only be found in the present moment, in the stillness between thoughts, in the quiet awareness that underlies everything. When we let go of the ego, we allow ourselves to experience life as it truly is, without the filter of judgment, without the distortion of self-importance. In this space of freedom, we begin to experience the deep peace that comes from simply being. We no longer need to prove our worth, because we realize that we are inherently worthy, simply because we exist. We are not the stories we tell ourselves, not the roles we play, not the image we project to the world. We are the awareness that observes all of this, the timeless, boundless presence that is always here, always now. So, to discover the real you, you must let go of the ego, the illusion that you are separate, that you are defined by your accomplishments, your status, or your past. You must release the need for validation, and instead find peace in the simple truth that you are enough, just as you are. The real you is not something that can be found or achieved, but something that is always present, waiting to be recognized when the veil of the ego falls away. And when it does, you will discover a depth of peace, a freedom, and a connection that transcends anything the ego could ever provide. Life, much like a river, is not something that can be defined by a fixed, permanent self. It flows, it changes, and it evolves in every single moment. This idea, while simple, is profoundly liberating once we begin to truly grasp its meaning. For much of our lives, we are taught to think of ourselves as static beings, anchored in place, with a clearly defined identity that we must protect and uphold. We are encouraged to build a sense of self, something stable, something permanent that we can hold onto for security. But if we take a closer look, we begin to realize that life itself is in constant motion, and that includes the very essence of who we are. Think about the river. It never stays the same for long. The water that flows through it is constantly changing, moving from one place to the next, adapting to the landscape, flowing over rocks and around obstacles. Even as it appears to be the same river, each drop of water is never the same. The flow is continuous, evolving, shifting in response to the environment, to the weather, to the conditions it finds itself in. This is life. Life is a continuous flow, a river that cannot be stepped into twice. You may look back at the you of yesterday and see a version of yourself that you recognize, but that you has already passed, just as the waters of the river flow on, never the same twice. Yet we cling to the illusion that we are fixed entities, that we are the same person day in and day out. We hold on to labels, to roles, to identities, and we believe these define us. We think of ourselves as the person who went through certain experiences, who has achieved certain goals, or who holds certain beliefs. But the truth is, we are none of these things. Just as a river is not defined by any one drop of water, neither are we defined by our past actions, our accomplishments, or even our thoughts. These are simply moments in the flow, fleeting and temporary, not the essence of who we truly are. If we can accept this, if we can surrender the idea of a permanent, fixed self, we free ourselves from the constraints of the mind, from the endless need to defend and uphold an image. In the flow of life, there is no need to hold onto an identity that we must protect at all costs. We can let go of the anxiety that comes from trying to maintain an illusion of stability. Instead, we can allow ourselves to simply flow, to evolve, to change, to be. We stop resisting the natural current of existence, and instead learn to move with it, allowing ourselves to be shaped by life rather than trying to shape life around us. This doesn't mean that we lose our individuality, but rather that we recognize that we are not bound by a single, rigid identity. Just as the river is made up of countless droplets of water, we are made up of countless moments, experiences, and transformations. These moments come and go, but the river of life continues to flow. In this flow, we find the true self, not something static, not something that needs to be fixed in place, but a living, breathing process that is always becoming. When we let go of the need for a permanent identity, we begin to experience life in a much richer, fuller way. We see ourselves not as something separate from the world, but as part of a vast, interconnected flow. The river does not separate itself from the rain, from the rocks, from the trees along its banks. It flows with everything as part of everything. In the same way, we are part of the ever unfolding process of life. We are not isolated beings separate from the world around us. We are in constant relationship with the world, constantly changing and evolving, just as the river does. It is when we fight this flow, when we resist change, when we try to hold onto a fixed idea of who we are, that we suffer. The river cannot resist the natural forces that shape its path, and neither can we. Resistance only creates turmoil, confusion, and stress. But when we surrender to the flow of life, when we allow ourselves to change and evolve in response to the world around us, we find peace. The river does not worry about its destination, it simply flows, and so, too, should we. Life is not something to be controlled, to be conquered, or to be defined by rigid boundaries. It is a process, a movement, a continuous unfolding that we are part of. To truly live, we must learn to flow with it, to surrender the illusion of a fixed self and embrace the truth of our ever-changing nature. We are not the person we were yesterday, and we are not the person we will be tomorrow. We are the river flowing with the currents of existence, always moving, always becoming, and in this flow we find our true self, not something to hold on to, but something to experience in every moment as it is. We live in a world that is constantly trying to define us. From the moment we are born, we are given labels. First our name, then our nationality, our family role, our gender, and eventually our profession. We are taught to identify ourselves by these labels, to believe that they are the essence of who we are. But in truth, these labels are not who we are at all. They are simply constructs, ways for the mind to organize and categorize the world around us. They are labels, not identities. Consider for a moment the labels you carry. I am a teacher. I am a mother. I am a doctor. I am American. I am a man or a woman. I am successful. These labels seem so concrete, so definitive. They seem to give us a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. But are they really who we are? When you strip away all the labels, the roles, the expectations, the judgments, what remains? The truth is, we are far more than the labels we attach to ourselves. And in clinging to these labels, we often trap ourselves in limited, narrow versions of who we truly are. Labels, whether cultural, familial, or professional, create a sense of division. They draw lines between who we are and who we are not. I am a teacher, we say, and in doing so, we exclude the possibility that we could be something else. We limit ourselves to a single story, a single identity, and the more we cling to this one identity, the more we feel trapped in it. If we are just a teacher, what happens when we are no longer teaching? If we are just a mother, what happens when our children grow up? If we are just a professional, what happens when we retire? Without the label, who are we? The truth is, we are so much more than any single label, and yet we get caught in the trap of believing that we are what we do, what we belong to, what we have accomplished. Labels also create separation. We are taught to identify with the labels that are given to us, and in doing so, we build walls around ourselves. I am this and you are that. We say, I belong to this group and you belong to that one. But life is not about labels. Life is about the flow of experience, about the unnameable, indescribable essence of being. When we attach labels to ourselves, we are limiting our potential for connection. We become locked into a specific identity, and this identity separates us from the broader, more universal experience of life. We stop seeing ourselves as part of a greater whole, as interconnected with all that is. Instead, we see ourselves as distinct, isolated, separate from others. The real danger of these labels is that they keep us stuck in a fixed idea of who we are. They create a false sense of security, a belief that if we can just hold onto these labels, if we can just maintain this identity, we will be okay, but in reality, labels are temporary, they are not permanent. What happens when the label is no longer true? What happens when life forces us to change, to evolve? If we identify so strongly with a label, whether it's our profession, our family role, or our cultural identity, then any change or shift in that label can feel like an existential crisis. We may feel lost, uncertain, as though we have no idea who we are without the label to define us. But here's the truth: we are not the labels we carry. The essence of who we are cannot be contained by any one word, any one description, or any one role. We are not limited to the roles we play, the jobs we hold, or the identities we adopt. We are beings of immense depth and complexity, constantly evolving, constantly becoming. Our true essence is not something that can be captured by a label. It is something that exists beyond language, beyond definition, beyond identity. It is the awareness that is present in every moment, the consciousness that witnesses all things. When we let go of the need to define ourselves by labels, we open ourselves to a much richer, fuller experience of life. We stop seeing ourselves as separate, limited beings, and instead recognize our interconnectedness with all of existence. We realize that we are not defined by what we do, but by the awareness with which we engage in the world. We are not limited by the roles we play. We are infinite, boundless, and free. This doesn't mean we reject our roles, our responsibilities, or our identities. Rather, it means we recognize that these are not the totality of who we are. We are not confined to any one label. We can be a teacher and a traveler, a mother and an artist, a professional and a dreamer. The labels we carry are part of our experience, but they are not the whole of it. Life is fluid, ever-changing, and we must allow ourselves to evolve beyond the labels we have placed on ourselves. When we let go of the trap of labels, we become free to fully experience the richness of life, without the need to constantly defend or protect a fixed identity. We allow ourselves to flow with the current of existence, unburdened by the weight of who we think we should be. In doing so, we discover that the true self is not something we can hold on to, but something that is constantly unfolding, constantly becoming, constantly experiencing the beauty of life in its fullest expression. And that, perhaps, is the most freeing realization of all. The real you is not a product of your past, nor is it something you can project into the future. It is found in the ever, present now, the moment that is perpetually unfolding, never stagnant, never fixed. We often find ourselves caught between these two realms, our memories of what has been, and our anxious anticipation of what is yet to come. We think of ourselves as the person we were in the past, or we envision the person we want to be in the future. But in doing so, we miss the most important thing of all, the present moment, where life is truly happening. We are conditioned to live in the past or the future. Our minds habitually revisit past experiences, often reliving them, replaying the stories we've told ourselves about who we were, what we did, or what we lost. We may cling to regrets, guilt, or pride, shaping our sense of identity around past events, believing that our past is who we are. But this is a trap. The past is gone. It exists only as memory, as an echo in our minds. It no longer has any power over us unless we allow it to. We cannot change it, and we cannot live in it. Similarly, our minds are constantly projecting into the future. We worry about what might happen, what could go wrong, or what we still have yet to accomplish. We build fantasies, hopes, and fears about the future, believing that our happiness, our fulfillment, and our sense of self lie somewhere down the road. But the future is not real yet. It is a creation of the mind, an imagined place. It will arrive as the present, and when it does, it too will be fleeting, gone in the blink of an eye. If we are waiting for the future to bring us the life we want, we are forever postponing our connection to the present moment, to the realness of who we are right now. The only time we truly exist is in the present moment. And yet we so often neglect it. The present is where life is constantly unfolding, moment by moment. It is the only place where we can truly experience, feel, and be. It is in the present that we encounter the world around us, that we experience the fullness of our senses, the sights, sounds, smells, and textures that are available to us right here, right now. When we live in the present, we become fully alive, fully engaged with life, and we stop living in the shadow of what was or what might be. The present moment is not a concept. It is not something we can think about and define. It is simply what is happening now, and it is in this space of now that we discover the real you. The real you is not the sum of your past experiences, nor is it a set of expectations for your future. It is the awareness that is present in every moment. It is the consciousness that observes everything without attachment, without judgment, and without the need to label. It is the part of you that is always here, always now, always in the flow of life. When we truly embrace the present moment, we let go of the need to control or predict. We stop trying to shape the future or manipulate the past. We learn to simply be, without resistance, without striving. The present moment doesn't need to be fixed, and neither do we. We simply allow ourselves to flow with it, to accept what is, to experience life as it is unfolding. This does not mean that we disregard our past or ignore our future. It means that we no longer let them define us. The past is a memory, and the future is an illusion. Both are simply mental constructs. The present is the only reality, the only place where we can truly connect with the essence of who we are. The real you is not a product of your past, nor is it something you have to wait for in the future. It is here now in this moment of awareness. Living in the present moment is not a passive experience. It is an active participation in life. It is the realization that life is happening right now, in the space between your thoughts, in the breath you take, in the sensations you feel. When you embrace the present, you discover that there is no need to search for the real you. It has always been here in the silence of now. You are the awareness that experiences this moment, and as you embrace it fully, you find that there is nothing more real, more true, or more beautiful than the present. In the present, there is no past to weigh you down, and there is no future to cause anxiety. There is simply life, unfolding as it should. When we learn to live in the present, we align ourselves with the natural flow of existence, and we stop trying to impose artificial structures on our experience. We simply allow life to unfold, knowing that in doing so, we are in perfect harmony with who we truly are. So let go of the need to define yourself by the past, and let go of the anxiety about the future. Live fully in the present moment, and you will find that the real you is not something you need to search for or attain. It is the awareness that is always here, always now. It is the essence of life itself, unfolding in the present. When we live with the belief that we are separate from the world around us, we trap ourselves in a narrow, constricted view of reality. We see ourselves as distinct from nature, from the people we meet, and even from the vast cosmos itself. We tend to think of ourselves as isolated individuals trying to make our way through the world, battling against forces beyond our control. But the truth, though simple, is often elusive. We are not separate from the universe. We are not isolated beings struggling on our own. The illusion of separation is just that, an illusion. When you let go of the idea that you are separate, when you truly realize the interconnectedness of all things, a profound shift happens. It is as if a veil is lifted, and you begin to see that you are not a lone entity in a vast, indifferent world. You are a part of it, deeply embedded in the very fabric of existence. You are not outside the universe looking in. You are the universe itself, experiencing itself through you. The stars, the trees, the wind, and even the people you encounter are all expressions of the same energy, the same life force that flows through you. Think of it like this. Imagine a river that flows endlessly toward the ocean. The river's water is always changing, always flowing, but it is never truly separate from the ocean. It is the ocean in a different form. The same water that flows in the river will eventually return to the ocean where it began. You too are like that water. You are not separate from the universe. You are an expression of it. Your thoughts, your actions, your experiences are all waves in the ocean of existence. You may seem to be a separate drop for a moment, but you are always part of the whole, always interconnected with everything else. When you realize this truth, that you are not separate from the universe, you begin to see the interconnectedness in all things. You see that the trees, the animals, the mountains, the rivers, and the sky are all manifestations of the same underlying energy. You are part of the same process of life that flows through every living thing, through every atom, through every galaxy. The boundaries between you and the world begin to dissolve. There is no you versus them, no I versus it. There is only life, unfolding in countless forms. This realization opens the door to a deeper sense of peace and harmony. The struggle for individuality, the fight for separation, begins to fade. When you see yourself as one with the universe, you no longer feel the need to compete with others, to assert your separateness, or to prove your worth. You realize that you are already complete, already whole as you are. There is no need to struggle against the world, because you are not separate from it. You are in harmony with it. This does not mean that you lose your individuality. Rather, it means that you stop seeing your individuality as something isolated and separate. Your uniqueness is simply one expression of the greater whole. Like a leaf on a tree, you are distinct, but you are still part of the tree. You are still part of the vast, interconnected web of life. And when you see this, you begin to live in a way that reflects this unity. You no longer see others as threats or competitors, but as fellow expressions of the same life force. You begin to act with compassion, kindness, and understanding because you recognize that what happens to another happens to you. There is no other anymore. There is only us, flowing together in the river of life. When we let go of the illusion of separation, we also let go of the fear and anxiety that come with it. Fear arises from the belief that we are separate, that we must protect and defend our own little piece of existence. But when we realize that we are part of something much larger, much more profound, we no longer feel the need to protect ourselves from life. We can surrender to the flow, knowing that we are always held, always supported by the universe. There is no need to control, because we are part of a greater intelligence, that guides everything in perfect harmony. This oneness with the universe is not something that can be grasped with the mind. It is not something you can understand with logic or reason. It is something that must be experienced directly, something you feel in the deepest parts of your being. It is a recognition of the truth that lies beyond thought, beyond the sense of I and you. It is the realization that you are the universe, and the universe is you. When you experience this oneness, you no longer see life as something external to you. You become one with it, flowing with it, moving through it. You see that every moment is an expression of the universe, and that you are not apart from it. You are a part of it, always in the dance of existence. In that moment you understand that you are the river, and the river is you. You are the universe, and the universe is you. There is no separation. There is only the unfolding of life, and you are an essential part of it. To let go of the illusion of separation is to awaken to the truth of your being. You are not separate from the universe. You are one with it always in every moment, and when you live from this truth, life becomes a dance, a harmonious flow, a celebration of the interconnectedness of all things. The true self is a mystery, a vast ocean of being that cannot be captured by words, thoughts, or concepts. It is not something that can be fully known or understood by the mind, for the mind is limited, and the true self is not bound by limitations. It exists beyond the realm of logical reasoning, beyond the grasp of intellect. It is a silent presence, a profound depth, an eternal essence that simply is. And in this realization we begin to let go of the need to define, to name, to categorize. We begin to embrace the mystery. When we speak of the self, we are often referring to a fleeting image we hold in our minds, a collection of memories, experiences, and ideas that we call me. But this image is far from the true self. It is a construct, an idea built by the mind, shaped by society, culture, and personal experience. This image of the self is not who we truly are. It is simply a temporary reflection. It is the surface of the ocean, but it is not the ocean itself. The true self is the deep, unnameable reality beneath the surface. It is the ocean that holds all the waves, but is not defined by any single wave. It is the unchanging awareness that witnesses all thoughts, all feelings, all experiences, yet remains untouched by them. This is the mystery of our being. It is the part of us that cannot be put into words, that transcends all concepts and categories, and it is here, in the very heart of existence, that we discover the true nature of who we are. But embracing this mystery is not something the mind can easily do. The mind wants to understand, to label, to explain. It wants to grasp the nature of the self, to define it in terms it can comprehend. But the true self cannot be grasped by the mind, for the mind itself is limited, and the true self is boundless. It is like trying to catch the wind in your hands. No matter how hard you try, it slips through your fingers. And yet this is the very nature of the self. It is not something you can hold onto or possess. It is the vast, open space in which all things arise and pass away. To embrace the mystery of the true self is to surrender the need for certainty. It is to stop trying to define who we are, to stop trying to control or manipulate our experience. It is to let go of the need for answers and to simply rest in the mystery of existence itself. In doing so, we begin to experience the depth and richness of life in a way that is beyond the limitations of the mind. We stop searching for the self outside of ourselves and begin to realize that the self is not something we can find. It is something we are in every moment, without need for explanation or definition. When we stop trying to define ourselves, when we stop clinging to labels and concepts, we open ourselves to the vastness of who we are. We become like the ocean, immeasurable, ever-changing, yet always whole. We cease to be confined by the boundaries of thought and identity, and we begin to experience the freedom that comes from simply being. The true self is not something that can be described or understood. It is something to be experienced, something to be lived. It is the feeling of being alive, of being present in each moment, without the need for analysis or judgment. In the mystery of the true self there is a profound peace, a stillness that cannot be disturbed. It is the recognition that we are part of something far greater than our individual selves. We are not separate from life. We are life itself, unfolding in this moment, here and now. And in this unfolding we discover that there is nothing to attain, nothing to prove, no goal to reach. There is simply being, an endless, timeless presence that is beyond comprehension, yet so familiar. Embracing the mystery means letting go of the need for control. It means allowing life to unfold as it is, without trying to impose our will upon it. It means resting in the uncertainty, the unknown, and finding peace in the fact that we do not have to understand everything. The true self is not something that can be figured out. It is something that can only be experienced in the here and now. It is the mystery that is always present, always unfolding, and always inviting us to step beyond the limitations of the mind and into the vast, infinite ocean of being. To embrace the mystery of the true self is to embrace life in its entirety, the beauty, the chaos, the joy, and the sorrow. It is to recognize that we are both the question and the answer, both the seeker and the sought. We are the mystery itself, and in this recognition we find our true freedom. We no longer need to grasp or hold on, because we realize that we are not separate from life. We are life in its fullest, most mysterious expression. So, let go of the need to understand, to define, to control. Let go of the search for certainty. Embrace the mystery of your being, and in doing so, you will discover the truth that lies beyond all concepts, beyond all words, beyond all thoughts. The true self is not something you can find. It is already here, already now, waiting to be experienced in the vastness of the present moment.